All right, let's unpack then what's been happening at that Northwest Provincial Conference of the ANC, and I'm joined now by political analyst Oscar Van Heerden. Oscar, good afternoon, and thank you for your time. So it took a while to get us going in as far as that conference is concerned, but it is underway, and it's happening, though, amid the protests of some sections of the ANC in the Northwest. I've seen letters back and forth between some members and the Office of the Secretary General, lawyers' letters being issued out, courts being approached in that traditional manner of ANC versus ANC. In your view, observing what you are seeing there, is this likely to be one of those conferences like the ones we have seen preceding this one in the last few months that concludes successfully and whose outcome the ANC can take to the bank as it prepares for its elective conference in December?
Yeah, thanks, Tulas. I mean, I think, anything is possible. With this lawfare, Dikgang Moseneke coined this term lawfare, where political opponents are using the courts to settle political scores. I think that Supra is playing politics in terms of the insert that he has just given, the interview he's just given. The truth of the matter is that when they were discussing credentials, he also wanted to rally some support from the floor in order to make available himself for a position in the top five in the province. That did not succeed because the issue that they now raise, Chulas, around the legitimacy of the PIC, the interim provincial structure. This has been the case for a number of years now. Why wait until the very last minute when you see your efforts has now been ditched, and now certain people want to run to the courts and say, but the structure overseeing the ANC in the province, their legitimacy is in question and imbalance. Now, admittedly, in terms of the constitution, there is an argument that says the IPC was supposed to only be there for 9 months, but I'm sure that the courts will also take into consideration the practicalities of that, the reality on the ground, and what necessitated the IPC to actually stay in their position for a number of years towards this conference, because as you know, this is not the first time the province is trying to have a provincial conference.
Yeah, and just the character of Supra Mahumapelo, who previously served as the chairperson of the ANC in the Northwest, he seems to be one of those people that continues to be a factor. The mere fact that there was even talk about him potentially standing for election for that position of provincial chairperson says that despite his removal as premier of the province, as well as the dissolution of the leadership structure that he was leading at the time, the PEC that he led, he continues to be relevant, at least in some quarters in the ANC in the Northwest.
Absolutely. The truth of the matter is, from where we stand as observers, it's quite patently clear that Supra is bitter. He doesn't like what has happened to him in terms of, as you rightfully point out, his removal as chair, his removal as premier, and so forth. He has a score to settle, and in as much as he's trying to give the impression that he's quite distant from these efforts that's happening, he's just observing from outside. It could have been resolved with the leadership. That particular leadership that he's talking about could have happened way before the conference. So for him to now suddenly say that this could have been resolved, it could have been done this way, where was that advice prior to the conference? So he has a score to settle. He's very much involved, as far as I'm concerned, with the court that wants to nullify this process and challenge the leadership because he has ambitions for higher office.
So, Oscar, one of the things that we are observing is this manifestation, albeit subtle, of this talk about factions that have particular names, the Thetalibans, they call themselves, in the Northwest. And this would be a second province where you are seeing some of these, the factions styled in this way. In that vein, then, are we likely to see this becoming some kind of a movement that has implications for the kind of contestation that we might see at the ultimate conference of the ANC in December?
Yeah. No, firstly, I call them fractions. You know, we've moved away from the two big factions, which was CR and RET, and now there's a number of fractions, whether it's Taliban or a corner, and so on and so forth, all just various interest groups within the ANC wanting to obviously have a particular outcome. With regards to the Taliban, I think it's a little bit, it's got two roles, dual function. It's also about young people coming through, young people claiming their stake, saying that the gerontocracy that's there within the ANC is over. Younger blood needs to come in. And so there's a direct challenge. Of course, ideologically, they claim to profess the interest of the poor, of the workers. But we've heard that story before. Even during the Zuma administration, supposedly the whole reason why Zuma came in Polokwane in 2007 was to challenge the so-called neoliberal economics of the Mbeki era and so forth. And yet nothing happened. There was no fight for the poor or the worker. So that's going to fall on deaf ears. I think the other difficulty that the Talibans and these groupings have is that they cannot rally around one name that can potentially stand against President Ramaphosa, number one. And number two, people are not going to fall for their rhetoric around the poor. And they also know that if they go to the polls in 2024 with a candidate that is unsavory, they are going to be hurt in the polls.
Yeah. In fact, you take me to my last point with you this afternoon, Oscar, around the implications for the ANC's electoral performance. Because you can have an Ankole leader, you can have a Taliban, you can have Adiwele, you can have whatever you want. But when it comes down to it, it is about the ANC contesting elections in democratic South Africa. Just the implications of the leadership that emerges from this conference of the Northwest this weekend for the stakes in the Northwest, where contestation is not only coming from the DA, traditional opposition, but also you're seeing the EFF performs quite strongly there. Vryheids Front Plus performs quite strongly. Then you've also had people who defected from the ANC itself, Forum for Service Delivery, also giving the ANC a run for its money ahead of 2024. I'd say they can't afford, they seriously cannot afford to come out with a leadership that they cannot sell to the electorate in the Northwest. That has shown that they can actually vote differently.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't need to tell you, Tulas, the state of affairs in the Northwest province is putrid. Dysfunctional municipalities, ANC-run municipalities, a dysfunctional provincial government, the unemployment levels, the frustration amongst people. So it's not, the ANC concerns itself with these leadership battles as if that happens within a vacuum. People are watching, people are interested, and the big problem here is they might have even, I'll go as far as to say to us, they might have decided, you know what, if we want to be successful marginally in 2024, we will have to maybe settle for CR as president. The rest of us will then be in the NEC and so on and so forth. But the people are not going to fall for that trick, number one. And number two, I'm not sure if the president himself is going to want to be a puppet in that regard. So interesting times ahead. Everyone is looking at the outcome of this conference because all provincial conferences gives us a story and a narrative as what can we expect in December at the elective conference.
Absolutely. I've got to thank you for your time and your insights here on eNCA. That's political analyst Oscar Van Heerden talking to me about the Northwest Conference of the African National Congress.